Hey, everybody, welcome to Moving Markets. Jeffry Dunyon here with Safe Option Strategies, talking about what is moving our markets today. I'm a little bit later than my normal time today, so it's almost noon Eastern time right now, or excuse me, noon Mountain time where I'm at, almost 2 o'clock Eastern time. So instead of doing this about 3 hours before the markets are set to close, we're only about 2 hours before the markets are set to close. I told a group of my students this morning on some live classes, it's kind of like deja vu all over again, if I can steal one of Yogi Berra's favorite phrases. The stock market is trading nicely today, except for Boeing. And Boeing, being one of the biggest components of the Dow, is dragging the entire Dow Jones Industrial Average down. The Dow's down about 68 points right now as we start this presentation. And it's been down as much as $105, $110 a share. The Dow's been up as much as 20 some odd points. And it's almost been 100% on the fluctuation of Boeing. So early in the day, Boeing was down 6-7%. Boeing came back to where it was only down a few percent. That's when the market briefly went into positive territory. When I say the market, I'm talking about the Dow, because once again, the NASDAQ and the S&P are having good days. They're both up over 0.5% right now. Both doing well. Apple is having another phenomenal day on the back of a good move up yesterday. Apple trading above $180 a share, but it's the same thing. The trouble for Boeing continues. I still think it's a little premature. I had a discussion with one of my friends this morning, Kevin Hurley. A lot of you know him. Hurley Investments LLC. Plug for Kevin right there. That's free advertising, Kevin. I just did that for you. But Kevin and I were talking earlier this morning, and we're kind of a similar mindset that the sell-off on Boeing is somewhat unjustified, but I'll tell you why it's not completely unjustified. Here's the situation. I think Boeing, is premature to say Boeing is 100% at fault in this situation. The Lion Air tragedy from 3 or 4 months ago and the Ethiopian Air tragedy from a few days ago both involved the Boeing 737 MAX 8 jet. It is suspected right now that in both cases there was some type of a software glitch in the airplane. Now, that's not known for certain. Even the Lion Air tragedy and plane crash from a few months ago, they still haven't concluded with any certainty that it was a software glitch. They think it was, but jury's still out on it. It's likely that the Ethiopian Air tragedy was something similar, but there's going to be several months at least before they know. In spite of that, the FAA came out with a statement today and said, we believe it's still safe for these planes to be in the air, but there's going to be a mandatory modification made, and they're probably going to get details about that in April. That's just a few weeks away. Well, I think it's a little unfair for the FAA to say that because we still don't know. I really want to make it clear here that I am not pointing a finger at a pilot who has now passed away in a tragic accident and saying that it's the pilot's fault. The thing is, we don't know. It could be the pilot's fault. It may have been pilot error. It may have been a mechanical thing that was unrelated to software. These are very high-tech airplanes. This 737 MAX 8 is a very technologically advanced airplane. Boeing has more orders for these airplanes than anything else. I think I mentioned that in yesterday's presentation, but it's only suspected right now that there might have been some type of software glitch or might have been some type of a software issue. There could have been a mechanical issue unrelated to that. And again, it could have been pilot error. We don't know that it wasn't. It's unfair to say that it was, because that would very unfairly point to someone who may not have done anything wrong. The one piece of evidence that may suggest that it could have been some pilot culpability, and I want to be careful again in saying this, is that a very similar situation with a Hawaiian Airlines plane. And I heard someone from the FAA being interviewed this morning on Varney and Company. Stuart Varney was interviewing some representative of the FAA, and they said that a similar situation with a Hawaiian Airlines flight happened, and the Hawaiian Airlines pilot was able to correct the situation in the air and successfully land the plane. And I vaguely remember the news of that breaking a few months back when there was that close call with the Hawaiian Airlines plane. Now there is some suspicion. Again, I'm speculating, but I'm doing this to tie in why I think it's a little bit unfair that Boeing shares are being punished. I understand why, but I think it's a little unfair. This Hawaiian Airlines pilot is the only in these three somewhat maybe connected incidents that was a US trained pilot and therefore had more mandatory training. The reality is this: in the United States, where we require hundreds of hours of training, there are other countries that substitute that with 5 to 10 hours of training. And that could make a big difference. And at risk of repeating it until you're sick of it, I'm not pointing a finger at and blaming the pilots in these two crashes. I'm just saying we don't know. It could have been that situation, but you can't dispute the facts that are there right now, and we can only use those facts that are there to sort of piece together some information. And that is simply that in the case where there was a U.S. pilot at the stick of that aircraft, it didn't go down. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, it's unfair that Boeing is selling off, but here's the reason why the stock sell-off is somewhat justified. Yesterday, it was Ethiopia and China banned all flights from taking off or landing that were in these Boeing 737 planes, and they restricted air travel over their countries in these planes. So you couldn't even pass through their airspace with or without the general permission that you need in normal circumstances. But they said, you can't even do that. Today, the UK and several other European countries followed that and banned the aircraft from flying in their airspace, even though the United States has said, hey, we think it's still a trustworthy plane enough to let it continue flying. So it's understandable that Boeing is taking a hit. It's understandable that it's a problem for the stock. As we speak right now, Boeing is trading at 371.17, only a few dollars above its lowest point of the session. Its highest point of the session was 390, right on the money. If before the market closes, this is simple math. If before the markets close today, there's any bargain shopping on Boeing, there's any relief to the prices on Boeing, anything happens to move Boeing back up towards its high of the days, it could still be down on the day, but back towards its highs of the day, you could see the stock market, the Dow Jones, do just like it did yesterday. Yesterday, we finished up 200 points. And I'm still a little bit in shock by that. That means that in spite of Boeing dragging nearly 200 points off the Dow, we finished up 200 points. It would have been a 400 point move up on the Dow yesterday had it not been for Boeing. If Boeing would have just traded flat, forget about anything positive. So if we get that reversal today, we're going to have another up market. But the wonderful silver lining in all of this is that the NASDAQ continues to perform well, up almost 0.75% now. The S&P is up 0.5%, and this is good. And this is still a direct result of corporate earnings, of forecasts, of general economic fundamental soundness in our economy. It's kind of a long way of saying that. Kind of took me a second to spit that out, but things are good in this economy. And there's not a lot else going on today. That's the other thing. Sometimes the market has its greatest ability to flourish and its greatest ability to move to the upside in the absence of anything going on. The headlines that are your general news headlines are somewhat subdued. There's nothing big. There is a little bit of concern over the Brexit deal. That there's some talk that it's going to go down in defeat. The newest deal that Theresa May thinks she has secured is going to go down in a glorious defeat, and that that's putting pressure on the British sterling, the sterling pound. It's also putting pressure on the European markets. I think they're closed now for the day, and I'm not positive where they may have finished. Let's see if I can. I'm not going to get it up here quickly enough to tell you, but it's the U.S. economy is strong. The U.S. economy is healthy. I didn't get a chance to finish. I ended the presentation yesterday because we were kind of going over time, but without turning it into some humorous, cynical thing, at this South by Southwest conference, I mentioned some of the things that some of the latest dribble coming out of the mouth of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. One of the things she said is that capitalism is irredeemable. I want to comment on that for a minute. I want to talk a little bit about that. It's hard to comment on it and not go back onto the rant about what a moron she is. And I'm sorry. Generally speaking, I can fundamentally disagree with someone and still like the person. Let me give you a couple of examples. I mentioned this in one of my previous podcasts or YouTube live videos. I fundamentally disagreed with almost every policy that Barack Obama tried to push on us. I fundamentally disagree with his politics and his view of the world, and especially with his view of the country. I've never met the guy. I don't dislike Barack Obama as a human being or as a person because I don't know him. And even if I knew him and there were things about him that I didn't like, I would still try my best to like him as an individual or as a person. I think there's a lot of people that are like that. I've brought up Juan Williams, who is entertaining to me. He's on Fox News. He's one of the few strong liberal voices on Fox News. I think 90% of the time when Juan Williams opens his mouth, the illogic of what he is saying is almost staggering. Facts are incredibly inconvenient things to liberals. Liberals hate facts. And what's funny is when you hear a liberal say, oh, you don't like these facts, and they're saying this to a Republican, they're saying this to a conservative. When you hear a liberal say, oh, these facts are inconvenient, 99% of the time they're cherry picking facts or making stuff up. And Juan Williams has been busted on that 1,000 times or more on Fox. And it's funny. I find this entertaining, and I'm not picking on him as an individual. I don't dislike Juan Williams. I haven't met him. I actually think I think he might not feel this way if he was listening to me right now. But I think we would actually like each other. I think we probably have more things in common than we don't have in common. But when it comes to politics, we see things incredibly different. But I just get a kick out of every time Juan throws out a cherry-picked fact that is completely out of context or completely irrelevant, or he throws something out that everyone knows is either made up or he's trying to spin it to say something that it's not. He throws it out there, and then when other people are on the show that he's on, the Five, are trying to correct him, he's like, "Oh, that's his way of shutting them up." He throws something out there and then goes, "Oh, you can't refute that." Oh, and just sort of yells over them, and anyway, okay, back on subject. I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is different in the sense that I don't like her. I not only don't like what she stands for, I don't think I would like her in person. One of two things is happening every time she opens her mouth. She is either as stupid as we suspect. She is either as unintelligent and ignorant as we suspect, or she is the most intellectually dishonest human being walking the planet. I just got finished right before we started this presentation today. I read an article, and I don't know what I did with you see me looking around here. I'm looking for my phone. I want to give credit to the person. It's an op-ed piece on Fox News. I'm going to give credit to the right person who wrote it. Rich Lo, I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Rich Logis or Logis, Logis. He has a show that he does. And I guess he's got a book coming out called 10 Warning Signs Your Child is Becoming a Democrat. So there's an op-ed piece on Fox News today, and I would encourage you to read it. But he talks about socialism, and he talks about how the reality is the people who peddle socialism, your Bernie Sanders of the world, your Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, these people peddle it, but they don't believe it. And it's a great article. I would encourage you to read it. I'm going to say something that maybe I don't disagree with his article, except maybe a little bit. I think some people do believe it. I think there are people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who believes the crap she's peddling, and that's scarier to me. That is actually more frightening to me than the intellectual dishonesty of someone like Bernie Sanders. And here's what I'm getting at. And I'm not stealing it. I feel the same way as Rich does in this article. Someone like Bernie Sanders, who has lived off the government teat for decades now, he makes a comfortable six-figure income. He is worth more than seven figures. He owns multiple homes. The reason Bernie Sanders says he likes socialism is because he likes it for everyone else and not for him, unless he is part of that ruling class. The thing about socialism is this. Socialism takes from everybody, but a very, very small, select few individuals. There is no middle class in socialism. In socialism, you have a 3 to 5% upper class, and the upper class are those controlling the government. They are those controlling the money, and they live lavish, wealthy lifestyles. And everyone else, the 95%, or more, live in abject poverty. That is what we see going on in Venezuela right now. We get people that talk about income inequality in the United States, and they are referring to the top 1%, and they're referring to the bottom 5 to 10%, and they're saying, look at this disparaging income inequality. It's horrible. It's got to be fixed. You got to take from the rich. You got to give to the poor. And that is such a load of crap. We have a bigger, wealthier, better off middle class than any country in the world, bar none. You cannot find anywhere in the world where you have a stronger, healthier, wealthier middle class than the United States. If you're going to measure the extreme tiny number of people on the bottom and you're going to compare them to the extreme tiny number of people on the top, yes, there's a big, huge difference there. But it's these people on the top that are responsible for all that middle class in between that are making it, that have a good life, that have a good living. I am part of I'm not wealthy. I am part of the middle class. And I am doing well. I have everything I need. I have many things I want, and I benefit greatly from a capitalist system. When someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says capitalism is irredeemable, let me say this to you, OAC. And if any of your friends, if anybody around you has the guts to show you this or has the guts to play this for you, then I would invite you to be a guest on my program, and I will treat you with respect and I will treat you with kindness. In spite of the fact that I've said some things that I know will piss you off, I'll be nice. I'll be polite. I would love to have a conversation and have a debate with you, because I will tell you this. And if this never sinks in, if this never gets through to you, you're too stupid to understand it, or you know it already, and you are the most intellectually dishonest human being walking the planet. If you know this already and you're still saying the things that you're saying, hopefully at some point in time, people will see through what a liar you are and how dishonest you are. You say capitalism is irredeemable, but capitalism goes, free market capitalism goes hand in hand with freedom and democracy and a democratic republic. It is difficult at best to separate the two. Every country that benefits from free market capitalism is a democratic society. Okay, you want a socialist society, and you disguise it by saying democratic socialist. That is one of the biggest lies being perpetrated by the media and by the left right now, is this term democratic socialist. The two do not go together. They are separated by miles and miles. When you say democratic socialist, it's an oxymoron like efficient government or productive government. There is no such thing as efficient government or productive government. Every single thing our government does could be done better by the private sector. Even our military could be handled better if you let the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines become private corporate organizations, gave them a budget, and told them, we are paying you to secure our country within this budget, and then get all the government red tape out of the way. Even that could be done better. Whoa, I just shook my whole computer there by banging my knee on my desk. I'll feel the pain of that later on. Okay, let me get back to point. Only in a capitalist, in a free capitalist, laissez-faire capitalist. Laissez-faire means government, get the hell out of the way and stay the hell out of the way. Only in that type of a capitalist society, that is a free democratic society, could you say the things that you're saying and not be thrown in jail or killed by your own government. And if you don't understand that, then shut up and quit saying the things you're saying, because you cannot refute that. You look around the world and you look at every example of a socialist society, and please do not go to democratic societies in Europe who have some seemingly okay socialist programs. I've talked about that before. I don't need to revisit it. I'm going to anyway. Here, I say I'm not going to revisit it. I'm going to anyway. You've got countries like Switzerland. You've got countries like Finland and Sweden. And people on the left love to point to them and say, see, there's examples of where socialism worked. Those are not socialist countries. Those are laissez-faire capitalist countries where the government stays out of the way of capitalism. And the wealth that is generated from that capitalism is so much that they have a little bit more of an ability to experiment with socialist programs. Now, I would argue that in most cases, those countries are struggling financially now, and that those socialist programs are not working nearly as well as you think they're working. The healthcare there is crap. Does everyone have it? Is it free to the individual, even though we know what that means? That means somebody is paying for it. We just don't want to tell you who. Can anybody there be on their government healthcare program? Yes. Do they have to pay anything out of pocket for it? Well, they pay incredibly high taxes, but they don't pay for it out of pocket, if you want to look at it that way. Is their healthcare good compared to the US? No, it sucks compared to the US healthcare. So don't point to those countries and tell me they're examples of socialism that is working. Socialism is Cuba. Socialism is Venezuela. And that's why you're perpetrating a lie to your constituents and to everyone who will give you airtime. And the media is complicit in helping you perpetrate this lie. There is no such thing as democratic socialism. The two things are in opposition to each other. The two things directly defy each other. And to AOC and anyone else who is following in her footsteps or listening to this dribble, I'm going to say it one last time and I'm going to end the presentation. You could not say those things and not be put in jail or put to death unless you lived in a free, democratic, laissez-faire capitalist society like we have here. So be careful what you say and what you wish for. The reason they wish for it is because they know it's going to apply to everyone but them. The only people that ever come out on top when you go to socialism is the politicians who sold it to you. They are the only ones who benefit. And if you continue to buy into this, you're going to be in big trouble and you're going to drag a lot of people into that trouble with you. I'm going to end it right there. You can tell I'm fired up. I need to go take a chill pill or something and calm down a little bit. But don't buy into this garbage about socialism helping people. It helps no one except the politicians who enforce it. I'm going to end it right there. See you back tomorrow.